Good morning, everyone. I am Joshua Aberia, and I'm going to tackle all about IP struggles. Let's start. The Philippines is a culturally diverse country with an estimated of 14 to 17 million indigenous peoples, belonging to 110 ethno-linguistic groups. They are mainly concentrated in northern Luzon, which compromises about 33%, and Mindanao, around 61%, with some groups in the Visayas area. Despite facing challenges such as displacement and marginalization, indigenous people play a vital role in preserving the rich cultural heritage and biodiversity of the Philippines. The condition of IPs in the Philippines. The Philippine Constitution, in recognition of this diversity and under the framework of national unity and development, mandates state recognition, protection, promotion, and fulfillment of the rights of indigenous peoples. Republic Act 8371, or also known as the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act of 1997, recognizes the right of IPs to manage their ancestral domains and has become the cornerstone of current national policy on IPs. Despite these guarantees, the fact is that wherever IPs live, they remain among the poorest and most disadvantaged people. The first ever report on the state of the world of indigenous people, issued by the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues in January 2010, revealed that IPs make up fully one-third of the world's poorest people, suffer disproportionately in areas like health, education, and human rights, and regularly face systemic discrimination and exclusions. IPs have been subject to historical discrimination and marginalization from political processes and economic benefit. They often face exclusions, loss of ancestral lands, displacement pressures too, and destruction of traditional ways of life and practices and loss of identity and culture. In extreme situations, social and political discontent has erupted into armed conflict. The 40-year-old armed conflict in Mindanao involving secessionist and communist insurgents is a prime example. Conflicts such as these not only threaten the stability and development potential of affected areas, they exacerbate the plight of indigenous peoples. From economic development to environmental protection to justice, human rights, and good governance, the protection and participation promised to IPs needs to be mainstreamed through all relevant decision-making bodies and stakeholders organizations. Poverty and living conditions of indigenous peoples around the world vary significantly based on factors such as historical context, location, government policies, land tenure security, and especially access to resources and basic services. These conditions vary based on factors like location, government policies, and access to resources, and many IP communities face land insecurity, limiting their livelihoods. They also struggle with limited access to basic services such as education, healthcare, and clean water, especially in the or some remote areas. Despite efforts, government support remains insufficient, leaving many IPs in poverty. Addressing these challenges through inclusive policies is crucial for improving their lives. Next is indigenous peoples and Muslim communities experience significant disparities when it comes to accessing education. These groups often encounter numerous barriers that hinder their ability to receive quality education, which contribute to broader social and economic inequalities. Indigenous communities often face issues with land tenure security, as their ancestral domains are frequently threatened by industrial development and land disputes. Without secure land rights, many IPs struggle to access sustainable livelihoods and traditional resources. Their access to basic services such as education, healthcare, clean water is often limited, especially in remote areas. This deepens the cycle of poverty and marginalization. Government policies and programs designed to uplift IPs are often inadequately implemented, leaving many communities vulnerable. Despite these challenges, indigenous peoples in the Philippines continue to fight for their right and protecting their culture and lands. By addressing their concerns through inclusive policies and improved access to resources is crucial for reducing poverty and improving their living conditions. Next is indigenous peoples and Muslim students face unique challenges that negatively impact their learning experience in school. So, according to Reyes in 2016, he found out that IP students face bullying from fellow students as well as education professionals, which affects their confidence and willingness to speak in class. In 2012, the Philippines transitioned to mother tongue based multi-language education, or the MTB-MLE, which considered the students' vernacular languages. This change followed a significant body of evidence showing that children are better able to acquire foundation reading skills in a familiar language. However, significant challenges have emerged in the policy's implementation, including mismatches between teachers' language fluency and the language of instruction, lack of teaching materials for subjects that were previously taught in English, and inadequate teaching training in MTBMLE, or the Mother Tongue Based Multilanguage Education pedagogy. Next is health outcomes are influenced by significant disparities in access to healthcare professionals, facilities, and services. So, studies found that both literacy and years of schooling increased between 2000 and 2010 among Muslim and IP groups. But the gap in years of schooling relative to non Muslim and non IPs remained large. Notably, secondary school completion rates are considerably lower among these groups, while primary schools are often present across barangays. IPs tend to IPs tend to travel long distances to access secondary schools, incurring additional costs in the process. The studies further note that conflict is primarily a cause of displacement that impedes access to education, particularly here in Mindanao. Next is the assistance to IPs. So, in the Philippines, UNDP has to date undertaken 35 IP focused or IP related projects which have together assisted 28 distinct ethno-linguistic groups in 12 regions and 21 provinces throughout the country. These projects have focused on improving the capacity of government agencies, civil societies, and other service providers, as well as building capacity among IPs and their leadership. Dozens of IP leaders and government employees received training on leadership and gender sensitivity, project development, and management, basic and advanced paralegal skills, community organizing and project development and management through the project's capacity building for IP leaders and community development paralegal functions and project planning and management. Elders and leaders now have great understanding of leadership and gender concerns, enhance the established framework for a law enforcement and community development, and raise the bar for incorporating customary and tribal laws into national legal framework. So the last slide is the conclusion. The indigenous people in the Philippines face a complex array of challenges that significantly impact their well-being. These struggles that These struggles stem from historical injustice, ongoing land disputes, and limited access to essential services such as education, healthcare, and economic opportunities. The lack of secure land tenure exacerbates their vulnerability, while inadequate government support and insufficient implementation of policies further deepen their marginalization. To address these issues effectively, a concerted effort is needed to protect IP rights, enhance access to resources, and implement inclusive policies that respect and integrate their cultural identities. So by doing so, we can work towards improving their living conditions and reducing the disparities that persist in their daily lives. So that's all, and thank you for listening. Once again, I am Joshua T. Aberia.